coronavirus pandemic has brought unprecedented change to almost all areas of everyday life. This means that charities are now forced to adapt or change its perspective on how its future fundraising should operate. The virus was first identified in Wuhan, China, and it started to spread rapidly to more than 200 countries around the world. And following some raising concerns, later on March 11th, the World Health Organization declared the global pandemic. As the virus became more threatening and kept us all indoors, we thought our communities needed our support more than ever before. Which is why since the beginning of the pandemic, GWA has been working on a number of projects to help the COVID-19 victims in UK and in Sri Lanka. Considering the situation and the support needed, we as a charity had to go through a lot of changes to combat and fund our regular and ongoing projects. Our COVID support journey began on 19th of March 2020 with the emergency COVID-19 community from Harrow. The idea was to support the community at large to distribute dry food packs for the affected families or to help them with their necessary shopping. Therefore, we joined hands with 8 other organizations, including Sri Lankan Muslim Cultural Centre from Harrow, and formed a support group called Harrow COVID-19 Support. Responding efficiently, effectively, and with empathy, as vulnerable groups across Sri Lanka went into self-isolation, we knew many people didn't have access to food or essential items, but also that health officials were under increasing strain as the pandemic began to bite. Our response examined how we could support the vulnerable groups and other affected groups simultaneously. Hence why, to keep the projects up and running, GWA decided to carry out a food tray sale on 12th of December 2020, with the intention of giving part of its proceedings to COVID victims in Sri Lanka. Alhamdulillah, with your kind and generous donations by purchasing food trays and with some other additional donations, we managed to raise a substantial amount of funds from this project. In the meantime, it had not been an easy path when it comes to deliver the proceedings successfully. This means our ground team also had to face a lot of difficulties in distributing the food packs to the COVID-affected areas. Also, in order to extend our help beyond our usual service areas, we decided to work collectively with some other charities, including SLIF UK, to help the COVID victims in Sri Lanka. The winter fundraising project helped us to generate £10,232 to fund our projects. Alhamdulillah, we managed to allocate some large part of this proceedings to the COVID victims, including people affected by local lockdown in various areas, where 36% of this were distributed to the COVID victims in Galhinna and another 22% of it were distributed to some areas in eastern parts of Sri Lanka. We also allocated around 42% of the funds raised to some of our other ongoing projects, including the Technical College project, which is one of our largest projects that we are currently working on. As mentioned earlier, we, the GWA-UK, along with SLIF UK and another 6 UK-based charity organisations, distributed over 300 dry food packs to the poor families in Ottamavadi, Valachennai and Akorepattu. We also distributed around 400 dry food packs for the people affected by COVID-19 in and around the areas of Greater Galhinna. And this was co-funded by GWA Qatar and GWA UK. Before we started the distribution process, we wanted to make sure that the funds we had raised should reach the most in need. Therefore, we decided to work strictly on 4 selection criteria. For the first criteria, we wanted to distribute to the families who are in isolation due to positive COVID-19 test results. And for the second criteria, the family should be in isolation waiting for PCR test results. As for the third criteria, we distributed for the families or individuals who came from overseas or from other restricted areas and were requested to maintain quarantine at home. And for the fourth criteria, we distributed for the families who have lost their main source of income due to the coronavirus pandemic. As being one of the oldest Sri Lankan welfare associations in the UK, GWA wanted to provide its maximum support for every COVID victims that it can reach through all possible means. This approach made us to contribute towards the COVID-19 Disaster Relief Project organized by Grand Jummah Masjid of Kalhinna, which distributed over 1,200 dry food packs for the affected families in Kalhinna. The stressful times still continues and the fundraising options also remains hesitant.
لك الحمد يا رباه أن قد هديتني.
Also, as the Ramadan is approaching us in few weeks, we are in need of more funds to support the needy through our Ramadan Project 2021. For this reason, we have opted to carry out our second food tray sale project on 4th of April 2021. Also, as the pandemic victims are increasing day by day, based on the needs, we are still aiming to distribute and cover many other areas in Sri Lanka. And we would take this opportunity to thank you all for all your kind donations, and we also would kindly request you to extend your generosity in helping us to reach more people in need. Jazakallahu khair. May the Almighty Allah grant you and your family blessing in your health, wealth, and protect you from all harm. And may He make these donations a means of salvation in the hereafter.